welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking all about for loops. So I thought of this idea of doing kind of a series of super simple coding tutorials in 3 different languages, and I never knew what languages to do, but after getting quite a few DMs from everyone, I figured out I'm going to do Java, Python, and C++. I'm very rusty on Java and I'm not the best at Python, but I'm brushing up on them and trying to make this content for you guys so that everyone can kind of learn together. So what a for loop is a sequential logic that you use when you know you have a fixed number of items. So let's say I have a list of 0 through 4 items, that's 5 items. So if I want to print out each item to the screen, I will do for the size of the list, which was 5, print out each item. And I'm going to show you how to do that in different languages in Terminal. That's another thing. I am coding with... I code with Sublime, which is just a text editor, or sometimes I code in Terminal. Once you download it, it's like hooked up to your terminal. I'm also a Mac user, so definitely different than Windows, but I know people use things called like Putty or Atom and things like that. Any of those will do perfectly. It's all about your file extension pretty much. So yeah, if you're confused about that and you want me to make a Mac, iOS, like terminal commands and things like that, let me know. But I'll have an article linked down below with like really easy terminal commands and stuff like that, just because that's not what this video is about. But so I'm gonna get into the coding, and yeah, just hit ls, which gives you all of the files in your directory. Okay, so then here I'm doing Python space python tutorial.py because that is the name of my file. It's the name of the file dot and the extension, which is Python file, so it's py. And then once I run that, it shoots out what is in the actual Python tutorial file. So if I go over to this in the Sublime side, you can see that I do for y in range 11. So that range is going to give you 0 to 10, because when you're coding, you always include that 0. So if you want 10, you do 11 because that 0 is still an integer. And then print, and then your variable. Moving on, we have this list of cat, dog, and mouse, and we want to print that out just sequentially like that. So this one is super easy as well. You just have your iteratable variable, which is your x, saying, okay, here I'm going to go into animals, which is this list of cat, dog, and mouse, and I'm going to print out each spot. Finally, for the last one, we have 3 players, Sue, Anne, and Nia. And then we have a base score of 100, and you have your overall total score is 0. Also, I don't know what kind of game this is. I just tried to make up an example. So X will be going for the number of players, which in our case is 3. And then I'm also generating a random number and selecting it from this list of options. So 1, 4, 8, 10, or 3 are our options here. And then I make total the base score plus whatever that random number chosen is, and then I print that to the screen. So you can see over here the random number chosen was 1, 3, and 1. In the other languages, we actually generate totally random numbers, but this was the first one I did and I never went back and changed it, so sorry about that. Okay, so I just cleared the screen, and now we're going to get into the Java tutorial. So to compile Java, you're going to do javac space java tutorial.java. So Java tutorial is the name of my file, .java is the extension because it's a Java file. You can run it by doing java space and then the name of the class. So this might get a little tricky because I'm not going too in-depth with the specific syntax for each language, but basically in Java you need to use classes. So I can go more in depth in a later video about that, but just for quick reference, this is how you do just basic for loops. So as you can see, this one we have a bit of a different for loop syntax. So what we have is our for int I. You always have to declare if it's an integer right there, otherwise you will get an error. and then you're going to say, while int I, so each part of this for loop goes int I is equal to 0. So that's where we're starting at 0. And while I is less than 11, which we know is 0 through 10, so while we're in that range, do what the statement says inside of the for loop, and then once it's done executing that, we're going to see this I++, which means keep going. And then once you keep going up until you hit that 11th space, which is your 10th space, and it will stop after it does whatever is in that 10th space. So that sounded really confusing, and I know. Okay, so next is our animals. So we have our string, array brackets, animals. So this will initialize that we're making an array of these strings. And then just as before, we're going to do, I start at 0 and I want to go until the length of the array. So we do the name of the array, which is animals. We do dot length to get that length. And then we say keep going until it's run out. So as you can see in Java tutorial, we use system.out.println to write things to the screen. So system.out.println animals at spot I. Now I know this may seem kind of confusing, but what you're saying is I'm starting at 0. I'm going to go for the length of the array, which we know is 3 because we have cat, dog, and mouse. And I'm saying at animals at the index of I. So if I is 0, animals at 0 is cat, because we always start with 0. Basically the next part is we have 3 players and we have our base score, our total, and then we do the same thing that we've been doing, but right here you can see it's less than or equal to players minus 1. So if players is 3 and we want it to just be 0, 1, and 2, to avoid an off by 1 error, you do the -1, otherwise you'll get a segmentation fault. Randomly generated a number, an integer, so we said int ran num, and then this is just the syntax for doing a random number that is between 1 and 10. You can change that range. If you just search generate random number in Java, this will come up. And then I did what we've been doing, which was the total plus the base score and the random number, and system println out to the screen. Okay, so last but not least, we have C++. What you see here, we have this function called int main. This is how it's always going to run. You need your main. This first for loop is almost identical to the Java tutorial one. The only difference is we use cout in C++, which allows us to print to the screen. And you can see it has those like side dashes, and then you end it with an end line and a semicolon. And then for the next part, we have the string array of size 3, and then you have your cat, dog, and mouse. And then since we know our size, we're just doing a regular for loop. We start at 0, we go until 3, and while we're not empty, keep going. And then right here, we're going to see out the array at I. This is kind of like in Python when we said, here's my array at this index spot, print out what's there. So that's what that does. And then finally, this is pretty much exactly like Java. We have our number of players, the base score, the total. We're going to keep going until players minus 1. We're going to run, the only difference is the random generated number, which you get by saying int randnum equals rand parentheses. So rand is a built-in function that will generate a random number. You can also set boundary lines there, so you could have like a smaller random generated number. I did not care for this video, but yeah, then I just added base score and random number to the total, and that's what I couted to the screen. And as you can see, it is a huge number that was randomly generated. So yes, it probably would be better to set limitations on that, but that is what I did. So yeah. Okay, I hope you maybe learned something. I really just wanted to get this trial run up just to kind of get a feel for what my editing is going to look like, and if you guys even want to see this style of video. So obviously there was a lot that wasn't mentioned, like all the syntax and everything that you need to include. I think everything could be explained in their totally own separate videos, so that is really hard to mention everything when I want to keep it really short. So I will be more professional with it, and I'll do more research, and I won't just do it all in one day like I did today. But I hope you guys enjoyed and maybe learned something. If you need more clarification, which you probably do, just let me know and I can send you a few links to some really good websites. My Instagram will be down below. And yeah, thank you so much.